Hi guys, thanks for joining me. Today I thought I'd do something a little different, and that is an unscripted video, because normally my videos do take quite a long time to produce, and I thought I'd make some shorter videos in between just to give you guys something to watch in the meantime. Today I thought I would modify this 80GB 5th generation iPod into a fully transparent iPod. No Bluetooth, no solid state storage, battery, anything like that, keeping all the internals stock, but putting a transparent front plate and back plate on it so you could admire that beautiful double platter hard drive that these things have. So without further ado, I'm just going to start making my way in. So I'm going to grab my iFlash pry tools and work my way around the chassis. The 5th generation iPods are quite easy to get into compared to the 7th gens, just because they have that plastic front plate on them. You still want to be a little bit careful not to damage anything, but honestly, you can just make your way right in. They are quite finicky to get into, these iPods. It is just practice at the end of the day, but essentially there's 16 little metal clips that go all the way around, and you've just got to follow them around with your pry tool. Once you get one side open, you just have to get to the other side and do the same thing, and then it should just pop right off, like so. Once you get them separated, you just have to be careful with the little battery connector here. You just unplug that like so, and it can just open like a book. Now we can just flip up the hard drive like so, and unplug this ribbon cable here. Of course, when you're working inside your iPod, you always want to be very delicate, because there are lots of small components and delicate ribbon cables. And if you don't have any experience working on technology, it can be quite easy to break something. There's just some glue that holds in this ribbon cable, and it just pops right off with a bit of force. Now I'm just going to undo the headphone jack flex cable, and that'll just pry right off as well. I can move the back plate to the side. I won't be needing it right now. And then around the iPod, oh, there is a loose screw. Don't know where that one came from. That's not even a screw that ships inside iPods, I'm fairly sure. Oh well. Around the iPod there will be 6 little Phillips head screws that you just need to undo. Alright, once those screws are out, just a little bit more delicate prying. Do be careful along here, because the LCD is very easy to crack and damage. Oh yes, you also need to undo this. The LCD won't separate unless you remove that ribbon cable here. Now these two halves should just separate as so. There we go. Now I'm going to remove the click wheel. So you'll need to pry up the logic board a little bit. The 7th generation's iPods do have 2 screws here and here that you'll need to remove. As this is a 5th generation iPod, the logic board is only held in with a little bit of glue. So some gentle prying will separate the logic board from the frame. You'll need to undo this little tab here if you wish to completely remove the logic board, but since I'm just taking off the click wheel, I don't need to remove that. Oh, actually, maybe I do. It'll make my life easier. Now that that's off, the logic board just pops right out. And I can undo the click wheel, which is also held in with some double-sided adhesive. If you want to reuse it, you do have to be a little careful not to damage it. And it just pops right off. Now the logic board can be put back into the frame. I can never remember how it goes in. My bad, you actually do have to put the new click wheel on. So I have the transparent click wheel right here. This will come with some more double-sided adhesive, which you can just remove, like so. Let me just remove this again. Alright, so you plug the click wheel in, and then just push down on it, wrap it around. It appears I've actually made a mistake here. Hence why I normally script my videos, because they're full of mistakes like this. But the click wheel does need to go in once the logic board's already in the frame. Or does it? No, I'm just an idiot. Again, this is why I normally script these things. All right. Logic board should fit nice and snugly in the frame. There's going to be some double-sided adhesive normally on the back of here. Doesn't look like mine came with any, but that's not really a problem. Or is it? Alright, next we'll want to prepare the screen and our front plate. So I'm just going to put down one of these microfiber cloths in order not to scratch our new front plate. So they do have this little gasket around them. I quite dislike this gasket. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose, so I just remove mine. It does make quite a mess, so you will need to clean it off with some isopropyl alcohol or something similar. And by quite a mess, I mean a big mess. So in your case, you might want to just leave this on. I'm going to use a black stick just to try and remove this gunk. But it looks like I might need my alcohol to remove the rest of this. Yeah, this is not coming off very easily. Alright, let's see if I can find some isopropyl alcohol. I'll be back in a second. Phew, okay, that was much harder than originally anticipated, but I did get this all clean. If you don't have isopropyl alcohol, don't try to get that rubber off. It's much harder without it. I looked around my whole house and I could not find any, which is crazy because, you know, I use it all the time. Anyway, now that the screen is all cleaned up, we can remove the display from the old front panel and put it into the new one. You want to be careful not to get any dust on the display when you do this. And so I'm just going to flip this around, that way no dust falls into it. You want to gently pry on these little feet here, as there is a tiny bit of adhesive that holds the old panel in, but you'll see that it just frees up quite easily. Now I'm just going to give this a small wipe, put it down, get this piece. It does look like the display has actually been replaced on here before. So the seller that told me this was unserviced and untouched actually lied to me. Oh well, doesn't matter. Actually, I'm mistaken. It does appear that that sticker was meant to be there. But I don't care. It looks cooler without it. Place that down. Oh, actually. No, that definitely does need to be there. I'm going to put that sticker back on, because without it, that will definitely short on the iPod frame. Oops, let's just pretend that never happened. Alright, now the display is in, I can go to the front, to this piece, and place it in. So one thing we will need right now is the click wheel, sorry, the home center button. So I'm going to get that. One center button right here. We'll place that into our click wheel. Oops, that did not stay in. Alrighty. Not perfect, but not the worst. Alright, now that that's all in, we can get those screws back in. Having a bit of trouble getting these to line up correctly. Having a lot of trouble. Alright, that's all screwed together. Now we can plug in the ribbon cable for the display. Perfect. That's basically the whole front plate done. Of course, I've put a few scratches on there, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Most iPods are usually pretty beat up anyway. So on to the more interesting part of the video. I'm going to get one of my transparent back plates, and I'm going to have to transfer the battery, hold switch, and headphone jack to my transparent back plate. Alright, I've picked a good back plate to use. You might notice that it's a little warped, but that's okay because they usually bend back into shape when you snap them onto the front frame. So I'm going to have to remove this battery here without damaging it because I do plan on reusing it. If you were doing this to your own iPod, I would recommend replacing these just because since most of these iPods are 15 odd years old, the batteries are well spent. So in the case of working with batteries, you usually want to avoid using metal tools. In this case, I'm just going to use these little plastic guitar picks, and I'm going to put them right under the battery and lift up. You do have to be careful not to damage any of the ribbon cables down here, but as you see, the adhesive's not super strong and the battery should just pop out. Now there's going to be 3 screws in here that we have to undo to get everything off. First screw is here. Second screw is here. And the third screw is up here. Once that's done, we can gently pry this all out. Do be careful with this ribbon cable as it is extremely fragile. I have broken far too many in my time. So I'm just going to try and remove this tape here. Once that's taped off, we should just be able to pop these out. One and... this guy's putting up a bit of a fight, surprisingly. Ah, I've actually missed a screw there, so there is a hidden screw up here, which I forgot about. Once that's loose, this should also just pop right off. I'm going to remove this screw because it's going to get in the way. At least I'm going to try to remove it. There we go. And then this back plate we can put to the side because we won't be needing it anymore. I'm going to get the transparent iPod back plate. I would recommend putting this on a microfiber clock just so you don't scratch the back of it, and check that everything lines up somewhat. Everything does appear to fit as expected, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some super glue to just dab these into place. Alright, as always when working with super glue, you don't want to get it everywhere, so you've got to be quite careful with it. I'm going to undo the lid, which of course is glued stuck. I'm just going to dab a tiny bit of this onto our hold switch and headphone jack. which will be a bit problematic since this is broken. Yeah, that's completely stuck. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of this onto the paper and then carefully put it onto our headphone jack and onto our hold switch. Now that's done, we can just delicately line this up. Of course, it's always easier said than done. There we go, everything's lined up. Just have to hold it in place until it dries. And I got super glue on my hands, of course, you always do. And now I'm just going to wait till this dries, so I will be back in a couple of minutes. Alright, now that everything's dry, I can continue putting this together. So I'm going to get this battery and lower it into place up here. The adhesive on the back of it should be strong enough to hold it into this back. There we go. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to put this back to the side here and get our iPod front plate. Put this down. Now I'm going to put the hard drive back in. I'm going to lift up the little latch, plug the drive in, that's our drive. So there are these little rubber feet. I can never quite remember how they go in, but I'll give it a go. Something like this. 1 and 2. Looks pretty good. Now our backplate should be ready to stick onto our iPod. So let's line these up together. Let me just get a nicer microfiber cloth. Backplate and the front plate. We're going to want to lift up this hard drive like so, and lift up the little latch. I apologize, that's not in shot of the camera. Here we go. So lift up the little latch and plug in our headphone jack and hold switch assembly. Then we can flip this hard drive back down and line it up. And then last but not least, plug in our battery. So we'll need to lift up this little latch here. This latch is probably one of the most fragile pieces of an iPod. You do have to be quite careful when using it, as it can snap off the logic board with very little warning. Alright, that's lifted up. I can put the rubber back in. I just noticed there's a little piece of crap in there, so I'm going to try and delicately remove it with my tweezers. There we go. And now I can lower this on top. So I'm going to plug in the battery, latch it in, and put the backplate on. Do have to be quite delicate with this, just as these plates are quite brittle and can snap if bent too much. Just got to clear the dot connector, and there we go. All snapped together. Now this is a fully transparent 5th generation iPod 80GB, and I think it looks pretty cool, being able to see that nice big chunky hard drive in there for all the world to see. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, it's a bit of a different format than usual, but I hope you learnt something nonetheless. If you want to purchase one of these backplates, I don't sell them yet. Maybe I will in the future, but they are available on Thingiverse in the link below. Now, if you wish to purchase the front plate, you can purchase that from Pleiades iPod Parts. He very graciously gave me this part free of charge for this video. So I'd like to thank him once again for always being very helpful and always managing to source the exact parts I need for my projects. So if you need any iPod parts and you live in Australia, Pleiades iPod Parts is the guy to head to.